Thomas Aquinas is an Italian Dominican theologian and philosopher. He was known for combining the theological principles of faith with the philosophical principles of reason. Thomas Aquinas was born around 1225 in Roccasecca, Italy, and died at age 49 in 1274. Before Thomas was born, it was predicted to his mother that he would enter the order of friar preachers and become knowledgeable and holy. At age 5, he was sent to Monte Cassino, where his studies began. When the monastery became a battle site, he was transferred to the University of Naples. While receiving education in Naples, he studied Aristotle's work, which sparked his interest in philosophy. Around 1239, he secretly joined an order of Dominican monks. His family, devastated upon this news, in return kidnapped Thomas and held him captive for a year, during the time in which they tried to rid his beliefs. In 1250, he went on to teach theology at the University of Paris, obtaining his doctorate in theology. During Thomas's time, there was an issue in trying to combine theology or faith with philosophy or reason. According to Thomas's theology, both faith and reason work in collaboration. Combining the traditional principles of theology with philosophical thought, St. Thomas Aquinas' influential writings touched upon the conflict between the relationship of faith and reason, which was widely thought of during that time. The 5 Ways, written by Thomas Aquinas, discusses 5 different ways that reason and philosophy can prove faith, the existence of God. Each reason begins with universally accepted ideas, and through reason, Aquinas tied each idea to prove the existence of God. The first way is the idea of motion. There are things in the world that are in motion. In order for something to be in motion, it needs to be moved. There has to be some factor that will cause that thing to move. This thing or event has the potential to be moved, but until it is put into motion, it will become an actuality. This cause being an actuality, which can affect a potentiality to be an actuality. In other terms, what's currently happening has various potential futures. However, what has already happened, the actuality, will affect the result of which potential event comes to be an actual event that occurs. Aquinas uses the example of heat and fire. Wood has the potential to become hot. However, until another event causes it to be hot, it will be a potential event. Once it becomes hot, the event becomes an actuality. It is impossible for an event to be both potential and actual, but in respect to one another. The wood also has the potential to be cold, but until something has moved it to be cold, it will not become an actuality. This being said, nothing can move itself. Since nothing can move itself or go from a potential to an actual event without something igniting this change, there must be a first mover. An exception in which started all of these events, or else everything would be infinite. That exception being God. The second way is the idea of the efficient cause. The events in life are caused by other events, similar to a cause and effect chain. That being said, no event can exist prior to itself, so there is nothing that acts as the efficient cause of itself. For example, if a prior event does not occur, then the event that follows it will not occur as well, so there is no first efficient cause. In this cause and effect chain, he argues that there must have been an underlying event that ultimately started this all, being not a consequential chain of events, but a pyramid scheme. In this scheme, one cause has multiple effects, so getting rid of a cause will rid the many effects. With that being said, there has to be some efficient cause to have started these chain of events, this cause being the existence of God. The third way is the idea of contingency. There are things in the world that are capable of existing and not existing. Things brought to the universe may be destroyed, thereby existing and not existing. If things all over have the capability of existing and not existing, then at a point in time, nothing has existed. In the current universe, things are brought into and out of life, which expresses the capability of life existing and not existing. If every being is a contingent being, there's a time that being does not exist. Assuming that the past is infinite, and all things are capable of not existing, then nothing should technically exist now. There must be one consistently existing factor or a being that is not contingent, that is necessary to prevent life from not existing at all, which is God. The fourth way focuses on the different degrees of which things exist. Things exist with different circumstances. One may have more and one may have less. Simply because a thing exists at a lower degree, it does not mean there is no reason for it. In the example of heat, there are different degrees of hotness. Heat of a lower degree must rely on heat of a higher degree to occur. In terms of things in general, things of a lower degree rely on a higher degree to exist. There are different degrees gradually getting higher. Anything with a certain quality with the highest degree is the cause of all things with that certain quality, so there must be something of the highest degree to be the base of existence. The highest degree being God. The fifth way discusses the way nature is governed. Things in nature work to attain a certain goal. In order to attain this goal, knowledge is required. If it has no knowledge, it at least needs to be directed by something that does possess knowledge. Nature operates in a certain way to be most efficient to reach a goal. Like an arrow has no goal and no knowledge, until an archer with the knowledge uses it and guides it to a goal. There must be something that possesses the knowledge and intelligence that can direct and guide nature to its goal, which is God. Thomas Aquinas sets up any of his readers with logical and rational beliefs and truths to lead it up to the idea that because of these rational truths, God exists in this way. Not only does he say he exists, God is the exception to these ways. The first way regarding the idea of motion. Things are always in motion, potential and actual. Something needs to move these potential events to become an actual event. He is saying that there's always a cause or mover. That being said, God is an exception, for he is the first mover. A skeptic would question Aquinas' beliefs and ask, is there concrete evidence of God's existence? Simply because the existence of God has not been proved to be not true, it does not mean that it is true, as any skeptic would put it. Similarly, with all the following ways, there must be a thing of the highest degree to control the lower degrees, and there must be something with the intelligence to guide nature, all of this being God. God is the exception to these ways because he is of the highest power and controls everything. This is a very theologistic way of thinking. Aquinas is able to use reason and philosophy to even make these rather radical claims. His argument contradicts itself. Yes, there's potential motion and actual motion, but it does not make sense that God was the first mover to have caused the first potential event to become an actual event, thus creating every event that follows. His arguments are all derivatives of the similar idea that there must have been something to have first started this, being the first mover, the efficient cause, the highest degree, and so forth. That is my opinion. That being said, I'm not invalidating his argument in any way. He has a solid argument that appeals to people, but how about the proof? His arguments do make logical sense until he concludes it to be based on the existence of God.